Today in this video, we're going to be kind of walking through a plus 15 Skyreach on beta. I kind of want to talk about the mobs, the dungeon design, also how Brewmaster is performing this week. This run was done in the 5th week of beta, so there's still a long time before the patch, and expansion actually comes out, but I'm actually really warming up to Skyreach in its current state. And so I am playing, in this run, I'm playing Shado-pan Brewmaster. So we're going to go for a fairly advantageous pull. Right off the bat, I'm going to be trying to get kind of like 3 or 4 packs together. This larger Dread Raven you can skip, actually, but if you tag it right away, it does give a good bit of count, which makes the end of the dungeon a little less awkward. This pack can be pretty scary for a tank, though it's definitely worth lusting. There's a couple of debuffs that are going to go out on the tank, making them take more damage. You also have like a group AoE bleed that gets applied to a couple of players. And then you have to dodge these circles on the ground. Nothing too crazy. If you lust and your healer does like a proper ramp, it's a pretty chill pull. You can see my HPS is like kind of cracked. Most of that is actually just my staggered damage, so it's a little misleading. Another thing too with this current beta build is that Celestial Infusion currently isn't giving you a absorb at all, meaning that you're not benefiting from a 30% DR. So yeah, I was running Celestial Infusion basically missing out on all that healing, even though Celestial Infusion and Celestial Brew right now are kind of not super great in terms of how much like effective HPS they give you over the course of a key. It is still nice to be able to provide yourself with a small absorb or a 30% DR, and the fact that Celestial Infusion isn't working currently is not great. So I'm doing this run slightly handicapped. But anyways, this next pull kind of similar, a little bit smaller. The Squalls don't do too much. The Dread Raven does this like pulsing AoE. They also will knock back a random player based on who has the arrow over their head, so that player needs to make sure they're not getting knocked off the edge. It is possible to fall off, as you're going to probably see here in a little bit. So I did just pull up my healing breakdown briefly there, and it's like, you can see that Celestial Infusion's just like not even close to being on there. It's like Celestial Fortune, our Apex talent is on there really, really high. The Refreshing Brew. We also have like Guy Plins, and that's it, like, and Vital Flame. Now I'll try to leave the talent build I was running in here down below. I would recommend swapping though to Celestial Brew, which is currently working. Anyways, this boss platform, like most of the mobs you're going to see at the start, it's like the same like 4 or 5 mobs kind of copy and pasted in different packs. You want to be careful of the shear ability that goes on the tank. The group bleed can be kind of nasty depending on who it targets, because it is a bleed over time. I keep opening up this stupid chat channel. I have to disable this because it's very similar to one of the keybinds that I actually end up pressing. And then these Gale Callers do this cast called Repel, which ends up just like launching you if no one actually ends up kicking it or stopping it. And I believe we actually end up letting this Repel go off. No one kicks it, and we all get launched. And somehow I managed to live here by getting knocked to the lower platform, but we did lose our druid and our magician. So they have a nice run back. So make sure you're kicking the Gale Caller. One thing in this beta build that Blizzard attempted to do is they tried to make nameplates a little bit easier to click. I have gone ahead and I made my nameplates personally like a little bit wider. You can't actually control the exact width in the base UI, but you can, oh yeah, big clipping there. You can't, like, they did improve like the text or like the box accuracy when you're going to click it. I haven't really noticed a difference in terms of that, but some of the additions that they added to like threat, for example, you can have nameplates change color based on their threat, which is similar to what most add-ons do. So I believe that was added this week. Maybe it was added last week and I just didn't realize it, but if I lose threat on a mob, it turns like orange instead, which is a lot easier to see. Anyways, this fight's been reworked pretty heavily since its first iteration of it, like 2 weeks ago now. As you can see, you have to dodge that blade that gets shot out. You can see it by the arrow. I believe the arrow indicator was there always. I feel like they sped it up, personally. I'd have to actually go back and watch older footage, which is a little bit nicer. And then this intermission phase actually has like these different like rotating tornadoes going clockwise and counterclockwise, which makes it a little bit easier personally for like casters and both for melee. Because before, you kind of always had to be moving with it, and it got really awkward when it lined up with like the knockbacks. But in this way, it's a little bit easier to like position, and your range can just kind of simply, sidestep back and forth. Now you do want to be careful if you do get targeted. I don't know what the abilities are called, but Two players will randomly be targeted with like a pretty nasty knock back that also drops circles on the floor that will knock players away if they step into it. You can kind of see them off to like the left-hand side. So you kind of want to drop them away from the group if possible. Also, it seems like these tornadoes move at like a static pace regardless of where they're at in the room. So if you're near the edge as a range, you should have to dodge less, but it puts you at risk of getting knocked off if you happen to get targeted. Where if you stand near the middle, you'll have to dodge obviously more frequently. So not really sure the best positioning or tactic. My whole goal was like to keep the boss kind of far away from these wind vortexy orb looking things on the ground. But that's pretty much the fight. I personally think this fight got a massive glow up. I think this fight's so much better. I don't know from the healings like point of view, healing perspective, but you have a fair bit to dodge. There's some like interesting movement during this intermission phase that doesn't feel too punishing or restrictive. But yeah, as you can see, one of the orbs actually got dropped right underneath us, and we both got knocked back, and our Jerd ended up getting knocked off the edge. So I believe we end up doing this boss now from 20% to 0 without a healer, which gets really scary. There is group damage, as you can see, like in 5 seconds, give or take. There's like a fan of knives kind of ability that the boss does. So I believe this is like a nice, I think it has like good elements for healers to counter. I think the movement makes it interesting for like melee and tanks, etc. There's no real tank buster, which is like I'm always a not super fan of. I like when there's tank busters on a fight because then it gives me something to actually focus on and worry about. Actually, now I think about like this entire dungeon, only one of the bosses actually has a tank buster. So yeah. Anyways, that was Ranjit, the first boss. He goes down with pretty pretty clean. A little of a botch at the end there. We kind of like dropped the orb right under the boss due to like the spawning and ended up getting us killed, but that's okay. So this next pull can be also really dangerous. There's a lot of bleeds that are going to get applied. You could take this one pack at a time, but what we end up doing is we end up doubling this pull up. Most tanks die here. This is probably the hardest pull for tank players, I would say, out of the entire dungeon if you end up doing this. You have these really nasty bleed effects that get applied, I think, on every like successful melee attack. You also have a lot of circles to dodge. Luckily, you can drop the bleed sec. As you notice, it's like it has a duration of like 2 seconds or something like that. So if you get a leg sweep in there, or if you ring a piece, or if you use like shockwave or it's Chaos Nova. I'm trying to like think of other tank CCs. You can pretty much easily counter it. You might want to kite. It also depends on like how comfortable you are in terms of your mitigation and like what level key it is and your healer, etc. Anyways, this next room has a lot of problems. This whole dungeon has issues with like clipping. I really hope Blizzard fixes this. You'll notice like these circles from these different mobs will just get like clipped under the terrain, which can be kind of problematic. So as you're seeing, I'm like tanking all the mobs on like this stone circle path around the boss room. If I try to move them anywhere else, I think it ends up clipping. So I'm trying to hold them in a position. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe if I like pull them onto a higher terrain, which it seems like that is, maybe they'll actually show. But this is something that Blizzard I think needs to fix because it's really hard to tell. These pulls honestly like aren't super terrible, and these solar constructs do like a big focus beam similar to like the light spawn mobs in Priory of the Sacred Flames. If you are familiar with that dungeon, I think I'd imagine you can like meld it off once it's on you. As our hunter just feigned that one, which was really good. So it's probably feasible to like mass pull this room like in one big go, maybe, or maybe like kind of how we did it, which is like split into 2 and staggered a little bit. But overall, pretty insane. Pretty insane room. The reason I'm starting to warm up to this dungeon is because I'm starting to kind of understand what all the mobs do a little bit. Not fully yet, but I think like the size of the pulls you can get in here are pretty big. And also their rework to some of the bosses has been good. I think the only boss that I have an issue with right now is the last one, which I'll talk about when we get there. This next boss was reworked as well. Oh man, I'll talk about it when it gets shown, but they still need to do like another visual pass to this boss because I think it's really difficult to see exactly what you need to be doing. So Arachnath, whatever this guy's name is, he has a tank frontal, like this fiery smash, and you have to constantly dodge it, which is fine, but I wish there was a frontal animation because it's hard to tell if you're actually going to be out of it. And then there's also these beams on the edge of the room, and once you kind of know what to do and know what to soak, it's You'll kind of like, you'll get it, but until you see the fight, it's like it's not very telling. And then these frontals are new, and now they taper off, but I don't feel like the taper is accurate. And so it's difficult to know where to stand. So what ends up happening in a lot of these group runs that I've been doing is that the melee run out because they're scared because they think they're going to get clipped by the frontal, which is fine. Obviously, the frontal animation isn't very telling from these bots. Like, you kind of can't tell where it's going to end, but you can see a hard edge once it actually goes. And so once you're comfortable in the fight, I think people will figure out a way to like keep their melee uptime. But I think the biggest thing is this fiery smash. Like, this needs to have a visual indicator. Similar to like every other mechanic, they ended up like reworking. Yeah, I don't know. I know it would make the fight a lot easier because I have to kind of always pay attention to the cast and where the boss is facing, and so do the DPS and stuff. But especially if I have to like constantly turn the boss around to face away from these beams to make sure they're not hitting, I just don't want anyone to get clipped. And if the DPS isn't paying attention, that's like the worst way to like lose a run, is like a DPS player was like a little bit too close to this fiery smash. And sometimes based on where the beams are angled, it's kind of hard to have like a safe space. Like, they can be triangulated perfectly where you don't have a lot of room to like dodge and stuff. But I believe this boss is static, so you can, despite him having little legs, I don't think you can move this guy at all. So yeah, this is the fight. I think it is a better iteration than we saw 2 weeks ago when the only thing he did was this like fiery smash in the beams. These frontals add a little bit more movement into the fight, which is like kind of fine. It has a very good pace. It's very consistent. It's like it's beam spawn, double smash, and then the beams go away and they do their little frontals, and then the beams spawn again, 2 more fiery smashes, and then the boss does like a big hit of AoE. And the fiery smash, I don't think will kill any player who gets hit. And I got hit by it earlier. I think one of our DPS might have got clipped by it, but it makes you take 100% more fire damage. And that's problematic for when the intermission happens, or when he does his big AoE, or you're soaking a beam, you just take infinite, obviously like 100% more damage. So, yeah, not a terrible fight though. I like the direction they're going. I just think it needs another like little visual pass, and we're good. All right, so now we are heading into the third boss arena. This is a very fast dungeon, despite it being. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually like knock some time off the timer, because this or maybe they'll actually just like tune boss health more accordingly or appropriately. But yeah, we're about to pull like the third boss even. So I end up doubling up this pull. There are 2 of these Sun Talon tamers, and they have a bunch of like pet birds. Now what they do is they end up doing like a mark of death on a player. As you can see, it's on our mage right now. And that causes all of the Talon, like the little eagle bird boys, to fixate that player who's targeted. Now, luckily, I think they went on the same player, which is good. You can have them go on 2 random players. Or, alternatively, you can keep them CC'd and locked down until all of the eagles die if you have like a ton of damage. So we execute that pack, and now we're moving on to Rukran, the third boss. They have improved this boss a little bit, but since Celestial Infusion wasn't working, this Tank Buster was a little annoying to deal with. It was hitting me for like 70% of my health every single time. Luckily, I was able to counter just with like a quick Purifying Brew and like rotating some of my other defensives like Cow, and I used Fortifying Brew earlier on. Now, what's going to happen on this fight is he's going to spawn these Phoenixes that will fixate a random player. Now, the melee doesn't hurt that bad. You can see that our mage is kind of face tanking the bird. The most important thing you need to do is the birds, when they die, they do that circle around them that erupts. And as you can see, it also clips. And then once they die, they have like an egg. Now, you want to kill these Phoenixes away from other eggs or they respawn, which obviously can be problematic since they do pulsing group damage. And so killing them quickly is kind of the name of the game. Also, this boss doesn't have. I feel like his health is actually like low, which is really nice because you're going to spend a lot of time focusing ads and hiding behind a pillar. And so having this boss at like a lower health or having a lower health pool just makes it so much easier. But anyways, I got a ring of peace there. I thought the mage was. For some reason, I thought there was like a dead bird over there, so I like ringed to try to get it away from the mage. But turns out the mage was the egg. Holy. And then we have this cast called Sunbreak, which just does like, it spawns the ad and it does a little bit of AoE damage. So this is going to be a pretty intense healer fight. I think they've tuned it down a little bit. I feel like it used to be a lot more hectic. but the check is a little bit easier now. So yeah, the key is just like, if the ad is fixating you, pull it away from other eggs that are on the ground. But this is going to be a pretty tough, like, enrage boss. Like, I feel like eventually you're just going to get overrun if the boss fight goes on too long. So having Lust here, I think, will be a good idea. But as you can see, the mage was kiting the ad towards the egg, so I ring a piece it away. And then ideally we kill it, like, right under the boss here, so it's just, like, out of the way forever. And so we'll have one more Sunbreak, which should spawn another ad, and then we want to fixate this one away. Now, the Hunter does a really cool thing here, where he's going to end up going to the far side of the pillar, but we do have a close egg here. But what he ends up doing is popping turtle and then bringing the ad a little bit further out. So he's getting hit by the quills technically, but because he has his immunity up, we're kind of like super chilling. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty chill fight. If you have Lust and CDs on pull, it's a really good idea to like burn this boss down. I do wish you could pull. I wish the boss was active and you could pull it with the trash in the room. I think that would be kind of a nice little thing you could do. But outside of that, just do the boss fight. I feel like they made the wind stronger on this gauntlet as well. I feel like last week I was able to kind of breeze through it, no pun intended. But now it feels like I have to use a lot of my mobility, and like even here, like I have no mobility, no movement speed, but I feel like I'm not even moving. And so luckily being able to use like lighter than air and dash makes it pretty easy to get up here. DKs are also going to have a really easy time at this. You just pop Death's Advance, I think, like twice in a row, and you just make it all the way up. I'm sure classes like Priest are really going to struggle here. So if you are playing with a Priest, I think it's like kind of a wait till your group makes it and just kind of vibe. Now, I think we could have pulled this area a little bit more aggressive. I probably could have pulled these 2 packs up to the right-hand side. I have yet to go left, but I have heard that left is really bad here. The mobs, I believe, are different on either side, and you get more of these elementals, which can be problematic. Going to the right-hand side is just you get some of these Blade Talon mobs. What I feel like might be a little bit more tank damage, but overall it's a pretty, like, tame area. Do keep in mind you can fall off the edge here down into the first boss room. And if you do die, the Waystone is all the way back in that last boss room, which is kind of a hike. All right, so here we go. Next kind of pull, we have a couple of Gale Callers. I think the Warriors are doing a fair bit of like tank damage to me. And then, so kick the Repel, and I want to say there's... Oh, never mind. It's the next pull. I'm dumb. The next pull has a pretty nasty like tank buster mob that tanks need to be aware of. Actually, the next 2 pulls I think are pretty insane. Not as insane as the pull before second boss, but some of these packs up here are pretty dangerous, especially when Celestial Infusion doesn't work. The main reason I'm still hitting Celestial Infusion, though, is because I am playing the Apex talent, which is allowing me to not only reset Keg Smash, also making it free, which is also giving me cooldown reduction and energy conservation, but it's also putting out refreshing drinks, which means that I'm like not only healing myself with a pretty sizable hot, but I'm also putting hots on other people. So yeah, I think our Hunter fell off here. And so right now I'm just kind of like waiting for him to get back. So we're going to just like kind of wait a second, and then we're going to go in. So it's these adorned Blade Talons that I think tanks are going to be the most scared of. They do a nasty tank buster that also makes you take, I think it's a 20% damage increase, or it's a 20% armor reduction, but I feel like it's just a damage increase. So once this is on you, you want to be really, really, really careful. They also do this kind of like group bleed that hits 3 targets, similar to like Soasmi's bleed with the Blade Slash. So just a bleed you want to use a defensive on. And the Chakra Masters, I forget what they do. Or are they the ones that do? Maybe they're the ones that do the dashes. I'm like actually starting to... They're all birds, dude. Everything's a bird. All right, and then finally, we're at the top of the stairs. I'm going to end up pulling both sides. There's like, technically, I think you could actually maybe walk by without it. I actually don't know. I never tried, but I think the mage ends up pulling an additional pack for me because of Kimbuster CDs, which is kind of ironic. That's okay, though. But as you can see there, I lost threat, and it ended up glowing the frame like orange, which I think is a much better indicator for like compared to the other things that they use. You can also make nameplates flash, but the issue with the flash is that they only flash like once. And then once the flash goes away, it's like you can't tell that you have threat or not. So I think the orange texture or the orange color is a much better kind of system for it. At least for me, it works. I'm hoping that I'm able to just use a nameplate add-on or like a texture pack that's going to just make them way better. But we'll have to see what add-ons end up being like. And then the rest of the mobs in here are just like a different combination. So the middle pack has like the solar construct like we saw down in the second boss room. Pretty chill mob, couple of warriors. I end up pulling a Gale Caller. There's a couple of Gale Callers in here. We want to kick the repel so we don't get knocked off. And then once again, this Blade Talon does a fair bit of tank damage. So it's important to pay attention to that. And so I would say overall, Brewmaster is like feeling like it's in a pretty good state. The meters are still a little, I guess, disingenuous in a way, because it's like, it's counting all of my purified stagger damage as healing, which again, I am fine with. And if this is like the metric they want to use, like that's good. I'm all for it. It's easier to understand how effective stagger is. But it is a little misleading because it's like, it's like if warrior, like HPS meter showed how much damage you were blocking. Like that's kind of how, that's like the same kind of schoolhouse that I would put it in. And it just like to me, and like kind of doesn't make sense to have it there. But I do like seeing how much damage I mitigate with stagger in details or in like the damage meter versus having to look at like a log. And so overall, I'm not like a big downer on. I'm kind of like indifferent. The only thing that's weird about it though is it kind of skews. Oh no, oh no, I think my recording kind of broke here at the end. Maybe it's normal. Maybe it's just for a second. Okay, hopefully. Anyways, yeah, I would like them to change it or maybe have a different category for like mitigated damage instead of like HPS and putting it there instead. Because what it ends up doing, if without looking at a log, it's really hard to understand like the percentages or how effective your normal healing is, because we're so used to not seeing stagger as an HPS kind of like variable. And so it's like when I look at like Refreshing Drink or Vital Flame or Celestial Fortune or Guy Plint's Imperial Brew or Celestial Brew or whatever it is, it's like really hard to at a quick glance tell how like effective it is or like what portion of the healing it's doing. So yeah. Anyways, this fight is this is like a hard DPS check, actually. So what ends up happening on High Sage Vyrix is you get some group damage. It shoots 3 lasers on players, and then those lasers like leave a pretty nasty dot that the healers have to counter. You also have these solar zealots that will come down, pick up a random player, and try to carry them to the edge. Your goal is to kill them before they get to the edge, or they get dropped off. Now, unfortunately, if you don't have the damage for it, you're going to just lose players here every time. So it's really important that you make sure you have enough damage. So whether that's like Touch of Death, whether that's like having cooldowns for it. But as you can see, our mage just got dropped. So we're going to get a quick res on them and it's going to be okay. Luckily, we had, I believe, 2 or 3 battle reses going into, I think 2 battle reses going into this fight. I think we end up losing another player as well. I think people have a habit of putting this fire up against the back room, and I don't think that's the way you want to do this fight when it comes to this fire on the ground. You want to, like, put it up against the side. So once again, Zealot's carrying him away. I'm going to end up saving Touch of Death here because it looks like we're way ahead of the check. But then my concern is like, oh, well, now we might not have cooldowns. Now, the problem is that tanks can get targeted. This is utter, like, actual bullshit. And so I wasn't, I mean, I ran this dungeon before this, so I knew they could target tanks, but I wasn't really expecting it. And so the path I just made there was terrible. And I kind of put us into a really bad corner here, which same thing is going to end up happening is that one of the zealots are going to come down. And they tend to carry the DPS to the closest edge. And so we had almost no time to save our DK, who I believe just got dropped. So I think our DK is going to go down. And I believe we're going to get another res. Like, we're going to get a res on him and it's going to be fine. I think, if I remember correctly. If not, we're just going to end up killing here. But it's really important. Like, I think they need to, like, they either need to make it so the mobs can be, like, knocked or gripped. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with my recording here, but it's like, hard stuttering for some reason. Oh, well. It is what it is. All right. So this boss, I think, needs... First off, why the fuck is it targeting tanks? Honestly, I think it targets melee as well. I just don't think it should target melee unless you have a full melee group. I think it should always prio range in most cases. That's just my opinion. I don't mind it targeting melee. as long as it doesn't target the tank. I just think it's like criminal to put that in here. It's actually insane. Anyways, though, that was our. I don't think we two chested it, but a pretty good run overall. I think this is one of my favorite dungeons going into season 1 as of now. I haven't run Pit since like its changes. I think Algathar Academy is still really good as well, and I do really like Seat of the Triumvirate. I think all of the old returning dungeons are looking and shaping up to be like really fun. A lot of big pulls, not a lot of casters, fair bit of group damage. Some of the newer dungeons have like a lot of awkward stuff going on with like dispels and shit, but I'll talk about those in a future video. Anyways, let me know what you thought about this dungeon and about, you know, the upcoming expansion, and thanks so much for watching. Peace.